Welcome to today's deep dive. It is Sunday, 2026-07-19. And for this one, I actually want you to imagine it's the absolute coldest day of the year.
Oh, yeah, just like completely freezing.
Right, bone chilling. You're in Kingfisher, Oklahoma, and your furnace is dead, like totally broken.
Which is pretty much a nightmare scenario.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the HVAC technician who comes out, he has to pull the blower motor, realizes he's missing a part, and then drives all the way back to a shop in the freezing cold.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then he finally returns to put it all back together. The whole thing takes 6 grueling, freezing hours.
So it's just objectively a miserable day.
Highly inconvenient, miserable day. But here's the catch. A full year later, you call that exact same technician to schedule a tune-up, and you tell him, quote, that was the absolute best customer service experience of your life.
I mean, it sounds completely irrational on the surface. Because, we tend to assume human memory works like a ledger, right? Like you mathematically add up all the good minutes, subtract the bad minutes, and arrive at a final score.
Right. A net positive or net negative.
Exactly. But that scenario fundamentally breaks the ledger.
It totally shatters it. And that is our mission for today's deep dive. We're taking a look at this bizarre quirk of human psychology, and we're looking at it through the lens of this masterclass in customer service from a guy named Dave Hartzell.
Yeah, Dave Hartzell.
Right. He's an HVAC technician with 47 years of experience. He's the guy who took that 6-hour disaster of a repair call and somehow, engineered it into a 5-star memory. Okay, let's unpack this, because how does an objectively terrible day turn into this glowing memory a year later?
Well, to solve the mystery of this woman's memory, we actually have to completely ignore the broken furnace.
Wait, ignore the furnace.
Yeah, we have to throw out the entire middle of the day. The freezing house, the delays, driving back and forth. The whole explanation lives exclusively in the final 5 minutes of Dave's visit.
So, sometime around hour 4, when the job stalled out, that would have been the absolute low point.
Oh, for sure. If you asked the customer in that exact moment, she would have rated the experience as 0.
Right. But Dave didn't end the interaction there because, fast forward to the finish line. The heat is finally back on. Dave is exhausted. He's dirty. He's probably freezing himself.
Right. His instinct is probably just to leave.
Yeah. But instead of grabbing his tool bag and bolting for the door, he stops. He sits down at her kitchen table, completely unhurried.
Which is key. Unhurried.
Right. He pulls out a piece of paper. He draws this simple little diagram showing exactly what part of the furnace failed. And he talks to her in this slow, calm voice. No pressure to upsell her on anything.
Just explaining the situation.
Exactly. And he finishes by delivering the good news that the unit actually has a solid 10 years of life left in it.
And that kitchen table conversation overwrote the entire afternoon. The woman didn't remember the day wrong.
She didn't.
No, she remembered it exactly the way the human brain is biologically hardwired to file memories. The hours of inconvenience essentially just vanished, compressed down to just a couple of moments.
Okay, so it's just like going to a 5-star restaurant, right? You have this amazing 5-course meal. It's perfect. But at the very end, the waiter spills a carafe of boiling hot coffee directly into your lap.
Oh, man. Yeah.
The whole dinner feels ruined, right?
Yeah.
You only talk about the 3rd-degree burns. Are we just looking at the exact reverse of that coffee spill?
That is a phenomenal way to frame it. Yes, the coffee spill completely hijacks the memory of the scallops, just like Dave's diagram at the kitchen table hijacked the memory of the freezing house.
Okay, wow.
And your restaurant analogy is perfectly aligned with this Nobel Prize-winning scientific concept. In the early 90s, psychologists Daniel Kahneman, Donald Redelmeier, and Barbara Fredrickson discovered what we now call the peak end rule.
Peak end.
Right. Their research proved that the human brain does not mathematically average an experience. We really only remember 2 things. The peak, which is the most intense moment, good or bad.
So in this case, the frustrating middle when the furnace repair stalled out.
Exactly. The peak and the end. How the experience resolves in its final moments. Everything else just gets discarded.
Okay, I have to bring up this landmark study from 1996 because Kahneman and Redelmeier tested this with medical procedures.
Oh, the colonoscopy study.
Yes. And keep in mind, right, mid-90s, this was a highly uncomfortable procedure, usually done while the patient was fully awake.
Unpleasant, to say the least.
Very. And the researchers had patients reporting their pain levels minute by minute on a dial. So they found something deeply, deeply counterintuitive.
What's fascinating here is that they had 2 groups, right?
Yeah, 2 groups. Group A had a standard, shorter procedure, but it ended abruptly right at the most painful moment.
Oh.
Yeah. And Group B had a much longer procedure. Objectively, they endured significantly more pain over a longer period of time. But for Group B, the doctors deliberately left the scope in place for a few extra minutes without moving it.
So it was still uncomfortable, but it created a gentler tapering off at the end.
Exactly. And when they followed up, the patients in Group B, the ones who were on the table longer and suffered more total pain, they remembered the entire procedure as significantly better than Group A.
Which is just wild.
It is. Kahneman called it duration neglect.
Right, duration neglect, because more total pain and more total time actually resulted in a better memory simply because of how it ended. The length of the frustrating middle barely even registers in our memory banks.
So the brain basically just drops the stopwatch entirely.
It completely ignores the stopwatch. And, we really have to look at why, because this isn't just some weird quirk. It's a biological survival mechanism.
Like from an evolutionary standpoint.
Yeah, exactly. Think about the human brain on the ancient savannah. It consumes a massive amount of calories. It literally cannot afford the metabolic cost or like the hard drive space to store a 10-hour day in high definition.
Right, like trying to save a 4K video of every single day.
Your system would crash, so it aggressively compresses the file. You don't need to remember the 4 hours you walk through the tall grass. You only need to remember the peak threat, like when the lion jumped out in the end, the fact that you successfully climbed a tree and survived, threat level, and survival outcome.
Oh, wow. So the peak end rule is just our modern biological compression software.
Exactly. Which perfectly explains why the woman with the broken furnace experienced duration neglect. The brain grabbed the 6-hour ordeal, extracted the freezing low point and that reassuring kitchen table ending, and just hit delete on the rest of the file to save energy.
But, since our brains are wired to prioritize endings like this, we have to look at how people in the real world handle this. Because you either master this instinctively, like Dave, or you get it completely tragically backwards.
Which happens a lot in the trades, actually.
Yeah. Dave notes that young HVAC techs, they'll often do excellent, beautiful technical work for 3 straight hours.
Right. They take real pride in it.
They do. They have perfectly clean solder joints. Everything is mechanically flawless. But they treat the end of the call like it's just cleanup.
Which is the fatal flaw. Their bodies are tired, they want to leave, they've been sweating in an attic or freezing in a basement.
So they just pack up their tools in a rush, mumble something about the invoice being emailed, and they just bolt.
Yeah, while the customer is still standing in the doorway with an unasked question.
Right. But wait, let me push back on this for a second.
Yes.
Because what does this all mean? Are we saying you can just do a terrible job, cut corners on the repair, but slap a smile on at the end, and basically psychologically manipulate people into thinking you're a master technician?
I'm really glad you brought that up because no, absolutely not. It is not manipulation.
Okay.
The physical work has to be real and it has to be necessary. If Dave sits at the kitchen table and draws a beautiful diagram, but then the customer wakes up at 2 a.m. and they're freezing because the furnace broke again, well, the ending changes.
Oh, right. The new end of that experience is waking up freezing in the middle of the night.
Exactly. You cannot fake the repair. But if you rush the ending, the customer isn't going to remember your clean solder joints because they don't even know what those are.
Right. They don't have the technical expertise to care about the solder joints.
Right. They will just remember feeling like a bother. They remember feeling rushed. Dave's core rule is honestly brilliant. He says, quote, "The middle of the job is mine. The end of the job is theirs."
The middle of the job is mine. The end of the job is theirs.
That is so good. It is. You have to deliberately slow down right when every instinct in your body tells you to speed up and go home. You show them the old part, you answer their questions, and you leave them with a calm, finished feeling.
So that the memory actually matches the hard work you put in.
Exactly. You're protecting the integrity of your own work.
Which is incredible. But, the more you think about Dave's rule about furnace repairs, it's not really just about customer service.
No, not at all.
It's the exact same mechanism we use to judge our entire lives. The deep dive really zooms out here because Dave realizes the peak end rule applies to literally everything.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it really dictates how we evaluate basically all of our experiences.
Right. Like, think about how people remember a marriage. They don't mathematically average out 20 years of mundane Tuesday mornings.
Right. They remember the absolute best stretch or the absolute worst stretch and how it ended.
Yeah. Or a career.
Yeah.
You remember your highest achievement, your peak, and the day you packed up your desk and walked out the door.
We even do this with people. Like, You remember a parent by a few really vivid moments from childhood and then their final
It's
years.
like it's like judging a 500-page book entirely by a single plot twist in the middle and then the final paragraph on the last page.
That's a great analogy.
You literally throw away 400 pages of careful character building and dialogue, but the ending is the only part you actually quote to your friends.
Which highlights this really profound tension between fairness and fact. I mean, it is incredibly unfair that the long, ordinary, quiet middle days,
Which make up the vast majority of our lives, right?
right, those days actually make up the bulk of our existence, but they just mostly dissolve.
They just vanish.
Yeah, but, there's no use fighting how the mind files things. It's biological.
So you can't argue with the algorithm, you just have to learn how to code for it.
Precisely. You have to accept that the ending carries the weight, so you give it the deliberate attention it demands.
That's exactly the takeaway here. Because Dave Hartzell, he didn't need to read Kahneman's scientific papers to understand human nature.
No, 47 years in the trade taught him everything he needed to know.
Yeah, he learned to stop limping across the finish line. He finishes on purpose. Calm voice, clear explanation, a real goodbye.
It's a deliberate act of translating reality into a positive memory.
Exactly. So for you listening, we want to challenge you to examine your own endings this week.
Yeah, think about your own transitions.
Right, whether you're wrapping up a project at work or saying goodbye to a friend after a long trip or just finishing a really tough conversation. Are you treating that ending as a hurried cleanup?
Are you rushing out the door just because you're tired?
Yeah. Or are you giving it the deliberate, unhurried attention it deserves, knowing it's basically the only part their brain is actually going to keep?
It really forces you to reevaluate how you close things out.
It does. And I want to leave you with one final kind of provocative thought to pull on. Because if our memories of our own lives are genuinely just a highlight reel of peaks and endings,
Hmm.
it begs a really strange question.
Oh, definitely.
Are we actually living for the experience itself in the present moment? Or are we secretly just curating the final memories that our future selves will have to look back on?
Wow. Yeah, that's a lot to chew on.
Think about that the next time you find yourself stuck in a frustrating, long, ordinary middle. Just remember the cold reality of a freezing afternoon and, well, the lasting warmth of a quiet kitchen table.